Hello everyone, many thanks for joining this webinar. I'm Warren Butler, Marketing Director at Preact, and I'm joined by our pre-sales consultant Martin Prosser. Today we'll be sharing some examples of how Microsoft Dynamics 365 connects with Office 365 applications, including Microsoft Teams and Outlook. In these, we'll look at how these products work together to support home working and how they help to maintain productivity and collaboration. If your organisation is already using Dynamics, we'll aim to highlight some aspects of its integration with Office 365 that you might not be so familiar with. As well as Microsoft Teams, we'll touch on SharePoint. We'll also cover the app for Outlook, which will be particularly important if you are still using the legacy Outlook connector, as Microsoft has recently announced this is now deprecated. If you are using Office 365 but you haven't yet deployed Dynamics, we hope you'll find this a useful introduction to see examples of how better experiences can be created by linking these familiar apps with CRM on a unified platform. Before we get started, a brief introduction to Preact. We are a Microsoft Gold partner helping small and medium-sized businesses implement and support Dynamics 365 across CRM apps and solutions that are built on the Microsoft Power Platform. Trading since 1993, today we support more than 8,000 Dynamics users across a variety of industry sectors. We're one of a few select partners to be named in Microsoft's Inner Circle for its business applications, which puts Preact into the top 1% of providers. If you're looking to do more with Dynamics 365, please get in touch and we'll be delighted to discuss your plans and offer advice. So in the space of a few short weeks, many of us are having to adapt to the reality of very different working environments. And with organisations increasingly dependent on a distributed workforce, as more people are working from home, it presents new challenges as customer meetings are cancelled, or if there aren't the same opportunities to have the impromptu conversations with colleagues that we previously took for granted. But it does also create an opportunity to pivot and focus on driving more efficiencies through business processes. This may point to a need for a new digital workplace strategy, but it could also be a case of empowering teams to adapt and thrive simply by making better use of the technology that they already have. And that includes aligning CRM with Office productivity tools. Let's get started by looking at some of the reasons why Office 365 is better together with Dynamics 365 to help home workers save time, stay productive and continue to work collaboratively. Over to you, Martin.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Warren. I'm just going to take you through a couple of scenarios today, really. The first scenario being Martin, the salesperson. He's working on an opportunity into a quote in Dynamics. He's licensed for Dynamics. He tends to use Outlook, Word, Teams, SharePoint, all of the Office 365 stack really in his day-to-day workings. But he's going to need to get approval from Chris, who's the managing director. Chris doesn't use Dynamics at all. He predominantly works, his day-to-day workings are within Teams and Outlook. He does have access to SharePoint if he needs it, but he's predominantly just working through his inbox and collating with some of his team members through Teams. So that being said, if I just come over here to the Dynamics database, let's just make that a bit bigger. You can see logged in as Martin, the salesperson. He's working on this opportunity. It's for one of the top customers. Obviously they've given us a budget for £700,000. Quite quickly he soon realized that when he started adding in the products of interest that they wanted in the quantities, that actually this has gone over their budget. It's also over £500,000, and the rule internally is anything over £500,000 needs approval from Chris, the managing director. So that being said, Martin's going to work this. He needs to get to the quote stage, so we're just going to go here and create a quote. Within here, you can see it gives us a nice quote ID reference. We can then obviously do get products. We can pull those products in. So we've now got a true value on this quote. So we've got the details in over here. Obviously, it needs approval. Once Chris gives me the approval, I can then fill this in. We could have this automatically filled in if we need to, but hopefully I'm going to say in here, Chris has advised whatever he can advise we can do for this client. We can then fill these details in a second. So what I'm now going to do, because I'm on this quote, I can click on this collaborate option up here. By clicking this, it's going to link this into Teams. So you can see here, collaborate using Microsoft Teams, which nearly everybody in our organization is using now. So we click get started. It will then show me a list of all the teams that are available that I'm a member of. If it doesn't, and I need to create a completely brand new team at this point, I could create a new team down here if I need to. For now, I'm just going to put under the sales team here. It will then show me a list of all the channels. So you can see the 3 channels that have popped up under the sales team, these 3 here. I could pop it in under sales approval, under key accounts, doesn't really matter. It is a key account and it's an approval I need. Doesn't really matter which channel I put it in. Equally, I could come down here and I could create a new channel if I need to, but for this purpose, I'm just going to pick sales approvals and then I'm going to click next. This will then, I could have added more team members in there if I needed to, but I know full well that Chris is in all of the teams, so it doesn't really make too much difference. At this point, you can obviously load the Teams application installed on your desktop, or you can go in via the web application if you need to. I'm just going to click here via the web. Just wait for that to load. And then you can see, so these are all the teams that popped up. So what we've actually done is we've linked it to this sales team. If we expand the sales team over here, you can see these are all the different channels that we've got. Because we linked it to sales approvals, you can see automatically now what it's done is it's pinned this record up here to the top of this channel. So we can see all the details in here. What I'm now going to go away and do, instead of inviting Chris to a Teams meeting or putting something in his diary, I'm just going to try and tap him up using this little start conversation option over here. Click on here, you can see I can start a conversation on this. So Chris, there we go. Let me just type something in here. Something like that. Hope you're well. Have a quote I need to get out to Jake. It's an urgent order over their budget. Please can you review and advise, so I can send this out to Chris. Now just flicking over here to Chris, you can see Chris is typically working. You know, he's in his calendar, he's in his Outlook, but he's just got on his other screen, he's just got an alert over here. So you can see it would pop up under the activity to say this has now come across. You can see, because I've tagged Chris in, obviously he can set his own under here, under settings, there's notifications. If he's got these turned on, you can see here under settings, each individual user will have the option to put notifications on or off. You can see, you know, personal mentions, anything else like this. Basically, you know, how this appears. Equally, they could then manage somebody else's status. So if somebody's on do not disturb and then all of a sudden they become available, they could get a notification around that as well. There's a whole load of notification settings over here in Teams if need be. But you can see it gives it the little @ sign here. So Chris knows full well now that he's been tagged in on this. So he can then go in and then he can join this. So just by joining this conversation over here, he can see up here that he's got this pinned quote that he needs to look at. And if he just pops this out as well, he will then be able to see what what Martin's been asking of him. Just pop this out here. You can see, oh, there you go, Chris, hope you're well, blah, blah, blah. These are the details. Okay. At this point, Chris is really busy. So maybe, you know, he can't work on this right yet. It was a nice idea, but actually he's saying, sorry, I mean, this does happen quite a lot, right? I'm just in the middle of something. Please, can you send me a calendar invite for about 30 minutes time? Perfect. Okay, so he's then going to carry on, what he's doing. Excellent. Okay, I can see. Okay, Chris has replied to me. Okay, I'll go away and do that now. So Martin has now got the option of going to send him a calendar invite. Now we could quite easily do over here in calendar, in Teams. But if we just go over here to our desktop, you can see here, I can go into my desktop here, and let's say it's going to be for, say, this afternoon at 1 o'clock. Actually, let's go a bit later. Let's go 4 o'clock. Let's go 4 o'clock this afternoon. So we can do new appointment in here like we would normally do, just through the desktop Outlook. By doing so, obviously you get this little option up here for Teams. So we can embed this Teams meeting in here as well. Catch up with Chris about Amazon quote. And then obviously in here, I can put in Chris in here. Now, this is only going to appear in Chris's Outlook, because this is just, just a calendar to calendar invite, which works how Outlook works normally. The fact that I've pinned a Teams meeting in here, it's going to show up in his Teams diary as well. But what I want to do is I want to pin this to Dynamics. So anyone looking at this quote in Dynamics will be able to see that I've got a meeting with Chris this afternoon at 4 o'clock. So what we then get, obviously when you're in your desktop, we've linked this to the database, you get the little Dynamics 365 tab at the top. If I just click on this, most of you will probably be familiar with the Outlook plugin. I mean, this is the same thing, but it's just configured in the cloud now, and it appears in your ribbon over here. It doesn't have to be installed locally on every single machine anymore. You can see it's not tracked. So I've got two options. I can do track without regarding. If I do that, this will just track against the individual people in this database. In this scenario, it'll track against Chris. I want to track this against that quote. So I can then go set regarding in here, and there it is. Look, so urgent shipment required is one of the recent records, so it appears there in my list. I could have tracked this against the account if I needed to. These are my pinned records. Equally, I could come over here and I could search for any record in the system, or I could type a search in here. For now, just for quick and ease, I'm just going to pick this one here because it's the recently viewed record. So just wait for that to finish. There you go, successfully tracked, and now we can see it's against this quote. Excellent. Right, I can then send this out. Click send on this. Goes into my Outlook calendar over here. If we just come across here and we look at my Teams, you can see over here, getting logged in as Martin, looking at his Teams calendar. So we've got the calendar over here now as well. You can see over here, that's the wrong one. Where are we? There we go. Catch up with Chris about the Amazon quote. We can click into that. Come 4 o'clock this afternoon, we'll be able to see all the details around this. We'll be able to click join, and we'll join this conversation with Chris. Equally, when we look at Chris over here, this is logged in as Chris. You can see there, it's Chris. When he looks at his calendar now as well in Teams, it's obviously then appearing, there we go, catch up with Chris about the Amazon quote. So now he's working through his day today. He now knows that he's got this meeting coming up this afternoon at 4 o'clock. And equally, obviously he's in his Outlook. So we'll just give that a little refresh. Don't need to, it's already there. I'm looking at the wrong day. There you go, catch up with Chris, 4 o'clock this afternoon. So you can hopefully see how this has gone into both Outlook calendars. It's gone into both of our meetings, our Teams meetings, and the calendars in Teams as well. And then if we just come back across here, just to show you the, it's the wrong one. Just go back to Dynamics. There you go. So on this quote here, this is the quote that we're looking at. You can see here, if we click on details, you can see the activity is now in here as an appointment. And if I just flick across to Dynamics, I'll show you the activity list here. So just showing you here. So I'm working through here, and in my day-to-day activities, outside of just this quote, if I just sort this here, you can see appointment with Chris, catch up, blah, blah, blah. It's regarding this urgent shipment requirement. So when I click on this, it takes me back to this individual quote. And like you saw in Teams, if I click on details here, we get to see this in here as well. So this calendar appointment has ended up in 3 places. It's in Dynamics as an appointment, it's in all Outlook calendars, and it's in our Teams as well. So people working remotely are getting a clear vision of where this appointment is happening and taking place. Now, come 4 o'clock, we're obviously going to go in and we're going to attend the meeting. We could come in here, then we can open this up. We can then add in all of our additional details in here. Yeah, Chris has said this, Chris has said that. Any other attachments in here that we could have? There you go. There's the Teams meeting. If you wanted to just leave that in there, you can. Okay. Chris agreed. What should we say? 7% discount. There we go. So we can add that against the notes if we need it, just so if anyone looks at the appointment and not looking at the linked quote here, they can see that. We can then complete this off, so it goes out of our activity list over here. So anyone looking at this now, it's now completed. It's a closed activity against the activities. It's now not in my to-do list, but against this individual quote, then we can say, okay, this is what was agreed. Again, today's date, and it was approved by Chris. Again, we could have all this automated if we need to, using Power Automate or Flow. He's agreed a 7% discount, so I can then add in 7% down here. Just by adding this in and saving this record, you can see it's now automatically adjusting our figures. So we're now coming in at £697,500. We know full well the budget for this was 700, so hopefully client's going to be happy. At this point, I can activate the quote from Dynamics. He's given me his approval. And a couple of things we can then do here, because this is what I'm going to send out. What's really useful here is to click on this create PDF before I send it to the client. When I click create PDF here, it creates me this, predefined template that we've got called Preact quote. But at this point, it's now saying, okay, do you want to store this in SharePoint? I'm going to say, yes, I do. So as soon as I click save, it will go in SharePoint. If I didn't at this point and I just wanted to download this locally, I could click download here, save it on my machine and do something with it externally. But I want to save this in SharePoint just to show you how then the files sharing can work in SharePoint as well. So I click save here. What you'll then see when this loads up, it will say your Preact quote was successfully saved to SharePoint. When we click on here and we click on related now against this record in here, and we click on related documents, this is now a window into this SharePoint location. You can see here there's this Preact quote in here. Now if I just go across here to SharePoint to show you where that sits, there you go, just logged into SharePoint there. So you can see if I just then click into, this is the channel that we were looking at, the team that we were looking at in Teams, and you can have other site collections in here if you need to. If I just click into here, obviously then you can see, look, there it is. So Preact quote.pdf is now in here as a document. Obviously if you click on documents here, then you can see it in here as well. Sales approvals, and then we see there you go. So there's some sales literature already in there, and there's Preact quote in here against this. Equally, if I just flick back across here to Teams, and we then look at the actual team itself, if you are predominantly working in Teams and not SharePoint, up here we have this Files tab. Now this is a direct link into there as well. So just by adding this in from Dynamics, it's gone into SharePoint. So if you prefer to just work externally in SharePoint, you can still see it. If you like to work in Teams in here and you want to access these files, you can still access these from Teams using this Files tab here. And also, as you saw in Dynamics, it sits on the Documents tab linked to the individual record as well. So just going back to Dynamics, click that there. What we can then do from here, what's really quite useful, is just to now, we've added that in for our colleagues to see, so it's now in there, and then we can click on here, look, email as a PDF, so we can still pick the same template from Dynamics, and this is quite useful. A lot of our clients are using this now. It packages this up over here as an attachment against this email that we're going to send out. We could then type our email out here, adjust the fonts and the sizing. We can insert a template here quickly, and then you can see I can insert a template and just pick something from here. In fact, actually I can't send it to the account, can I? Let me just quickly change that to Jake. send it to the individual that's asking for this. There you go. And then obviously when we click insert template, we can then pick something from here, and this will just pre-populate subject line, and you can see here. So there you go, subject line, and it's saying dear Jake, blah 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 blah. And then what we can do from here is we can send it out. So we can send the email out from Dynamics as well if we need to. This will now go out, it will go to Jake. Obviously then we can see that in here, you know, all the details around that. And if we then just quickly look at this quote from here, we're then getting an overall picture and view of everything that's happening. So we can see the discounts applied because it's approved by Chris. When we click on details tab here, there was the original Chris appointment we had with Chris that's closed, and now we've got this nice email in here with that attachment against it. Anyone who's looking at this from an account perspective, when we click on the account over here, they get to see, even though this was done on the individual quote, they then get to see this from the account level. You can see over here you've got links to all the opportunities, contacts, cases, anything else that you've been doing, but the day-to-day communications you can see a feed in this timeline. So anyone now looking at it from an overarching view from account level can see appointment, email, they're getting a bit of a picture of what's going on. Now just moving across, that's scenario 1 from a sales perspective. Scenario 2, if we just go across here. So scenario 2 is Peter, the customer service agent. Again, he predominantly works in Dynamics, working on cases. He collaborates through Teams. He's got access to SharePoint, Office 365 as well. He's got an issue with his case at the minute, and he needs to then raise a meeting with Fiona, who's the account manager, just to pass on some, some findings from one of his cases, but also to discuss any other cases he might well have in his list. So just loading up Dynamics, this is typically what Peter will be looking at. He'll be working in the Customer Service Hub Dynamics app over here on cases. He's typically working through My Active Cases view. He's working on this case at the minute for Qantas Solutions. He's got a problem with this. He's missed his SLA, that's expired. The account manager their end wasn't too happy when he was going through this and trying to find the details around the case, and said, okay, once this is resolved, please can we have a meeting with our account manager some point this week. So based on that, he can see up here that it's Fiona Foster who's the account manager. He's now going to go and schedule an appointment with Fiona. So he comes over here to his Outlook. This is the Outlook web app, not the desktop client we looked at earlier. And it works in the same way. He can just go into his calendar here, pick a slot. So if we say that again this afternoon at say 4 o'clock, that's fine. Meeting with Fiona. And then obviously in here, we can specify Fiona. By doing so, it's going to tell us the slots that Fiona is available on as well, which is really quite useful. That's one quite useful feature that we can see, when we're scheduling these appointments with one of our colleagues, basically, all working remotely. Obviously, if I want this to appear in the Teams calendar as well, we can tick this little icon here that says it's now a Teams meeting, and this will get created as a Teams meeting. And same as earlier, when we're in the desktop client, we had it in the ribbon. When we're in the Outlook client here, we get the little Dynamics 365 tab here in the ellipsis button. We can click it and it works in the same way. So we can then go through and, again, we can see Fiona here. Again, just track it, but actually it might be useful to do set regard in here. I could find that in here. You can see recently viewed items in here, but just to show you another way of doing this, we can click all records. I could click 8 record types and I could then go and search for any of these. Because it's a case, I could click into cases here. Again, you can see this is just looking at all cases, but I've then got the ability down here to click change view. So when I change this view, I'm presented with all of my views that I have when I'm in Dynamics. So if I pick this one here, My Active Cases, logged in as Peter, you can see there's a list of all of his active cases, and it's actually this case here that it's going to be about. So we can then pick this here and it will work, successfully tracked. Again, you can see this. From here, we could click here, look, view in Dynamics 365. We'll just do that. That will then quickly load that up. And you can see it takes us to Dynamics from here. We can then see the case that we were looking at, but you can now see here, look, appointment with Peter and Fiona. So it's an active appointment. It's not been completed yet. Once it's been completed, we can close this off here. So just going back to our Outlook over here, we can do this, and then obviously we can then click send on this. We've now got a nice appointment in here for Fiona. Now Fiona prefers to work off of, at the minute she's obviously working from home like everybody else, but in the past she prefers to work off of her mobile device. So she still, even though she's working from home, she prefers to access everything on her iPhone. She can access it on her tablet. So we'll just quickly click on here and load this up. There we go, just have to connect that. So you can see this is predominantly what Fiona tends to use. She tends to work in Dynamics, she works in Teams, she works in Outlook. So if I just click onto Teams, you can see, just scrolling up, can you see 7th of April, Tuesday, she's now got this appointment in her diary. If we click on this, we can then see all the details around this. So she's using the Teams app here. She gets to see all the details around this. Obviously, then they can chat in here and everything else. If we come across to Outlook, you can see obviously it's gone in there as well. Peter Parsons joined Microsoft Teams meeting at the top, RSVP. It's the calendar invite that she's got in here. Equally, just before she gets on this meeting, maybe, you know, she was working over here in Dynamics on her activity list. And then she just wants to go, okay, before I accept her, I just want to see what he might be talking about. So when we go down to cases here, you can see there's a nice view in here, account manager active cases, which she's pinned as her default view. So when we click on this, she can see all of the cases, so all of her accounts that have got an active open case. There's currently 4 in this view. So you can see this one here, CRM down. She can then have a quick look at this case on her mobile before she actually gets on the call and discusses this with Peter. So just moving back across now to Peter, if we click on here, what he wants to do, whereas on the quote we actually clicked collaborate and we went to Teams from here, what I thought I'd show you, if we just go across to Teams again here, what's quite useful, again you can see all the different teams over here on the left hand side. We'll just go into account managers. Instead of pinning it and collaborating it from Dynamics to Teams, what we can also do over here, we can click on the plus at the top here, add a tab. This allows us to add in any other connectors to anything else that we might want to pin. You know, if you want to pin a Word document, PowerPoint presentation, Power BI, Excel, you get the principle. There's a lot of things in here that you could quite easily go and find and pin. One of these being Dynamics 365. So you can see I can pin this here. It will then ask me which environment. Obviously, if you've got multiple environments, then you can just go through and then you can just pick one of these. Let me just pick one. It's this one here, and it's the Customer Service Hub app. Select that. By selecting that, again, you can flick between different environments if need be. You can come in here and then you can just pick specific records. You could search for a specific record. You know, there it is there. Look, I could pick that from there if I needed to collate on that. But over here, we have view selection. So you then pick the entity, so it's the cases view, and I just want to pin my active cases. So logged in as Peter, before I get on this call with Fiona, it'd be useful just to sort of pull up my active cases. Click save on this. This now pins my active cases to the top of the view here, logged in as Peter. You can see, similar scenario to what we're seeing in Dynamics, we get to then see this in here. Now, one feature that I think is really useful that you guys might want to see, if I just pull up Fiona's thing here, you can see if we go into Teams, in the background here, you can see from Dynamics, you get to see anytime there's a record that's a lookup to a user. Can you see here, Fiona Foster's got a nice little green tick against her. It says that she's online, she's got a green tick. This is her status. Now, logged in as Fiona, if I come over here, and I say, actually, I'm busy or I'm on Do Not Disturb. So she's changing this in her app over here. Within a couple of seconds, you'll see over here, can you see it's now saying that she's busy? So in a few seconds, it's actually changing her status. So in terms of where people are working remotely on different devices, on different accounts, changing their statuses and various other things through Teams, someone in Dynamics like this can actually say, okay, well, I can't quickly just tap her up, drop her a message in Teams because I can see she's busy. So this is a really cool feature over here when we've got these user fields in Dynamics. I thought I'd just mention that there because it's really useful. So we've pinned this active case view. Obviously then over here, we're going to then start this conversation with Fiona. So same as we did earlier. Hi Fiona. Let's just tag her again. You can see here, Fiona, like that. Send that. So come 4 o'clock, we're obviously going to get together on this meeting, and then we're going to just discuss this case here that we can pull up. We can talk about this, blah, blah, blah. Fiona will then be on here under her Teams record. Let's pull this up. There we go. So you can see Fiona's just logged in over here on her app, and she can then just see this on her activity timeline here. So you can see, look, Peter Pass added you, new tab to the top of this channel, and she can click into there and see the details. Hi Fiona. Obviously then Fiona can put hi Peter and then reply. You can then see this over here. This is coming through. Typically then, Peter's going to say, okay, I've got a problem with this CRM case here that's down. What can we do about this? Fiona will then reply. I don't need to go through the dialogue, I don't think. But what's really useful is obviously when we are in here, in these different views, you can see when you're on the individual case, with the view that you came from, this is quite a cool feature. When you click on this little pop-out tab here, it will show you all of those other cases in the view, so you could work down to your next one if you needed to. You can quite easily use this, but because it came from this view, you can click on this here. This works in the same in Dynamics as well, and it takes you back to the view that you drilled down into, so the view that you came from when you clicked into this. So we can see it in here. Now what I could quite easily do over here when I'm talking with Fiona is I could apply a filter over here on the column heading, and I could then say equals Fiona. You can see I could pick that and apply that. That will then just filter out my 4 records that I've got in this view, all of my open cases that are with Fiona. So she's the account manager of these. Equally, if I just clear that off, I like working with charts. So when we're in here, it's useful to have a nice little chart over here, and then obviously I can see this little cases by account manager. Out of all of my 14 cases in here, I can see 5 are with David, 4 are with Martin, 1's with Mark, and 4 here are with Fiona. So if I click on the 4 here from Fiona, that automatically applies, and I can get rid of that chart. It's applied the nice little filter in here as well. So hopefully you can see how we could then, pin some of these views up here, different apps and things like that, how we can then collate and work on these views, and how we can share the information through Teams. Again, you don't have to be a Dynamics user to see this. As long as you're in Teams, you can then still write over here your messages, and this person can share this section over here. I'm just going to show you a few of the other features that come with the Teams integration, potentially with Dynamics. And also then I think we can move on and just show you a couple of other things around the Outlook plugin as well. So just coming over here, so just back over here, logged in as Martin in Teams, you can see on the left hand side what we can do is we can then find these additional apps, and we can pin them in here using the little sort of ellipsis button here, more added apps. One of the ones that I've put in here is the Dynamics 365 app. By doing so, what you then get over here on the chat section is you get the Dynamics 365 chatbot. So when we click into this, a couple of things we can do down here in a second I'll show you. At the top here, you can see it automatically comes with a chat feature, which is what we're going to do here. You can also pin some of those dashboards. So if you've already got Dynamics dashboards that you've pulled in, and you want to sort of work on these in here, you see them from here, because again you prefer to use Teams and you don't want to be in Dynamics, then you can pull the same dashboards that you would be seeing over there in your Dynamics instance in here as well. So you can then work through your different dashboards in here, seeing where you're at, KPIs are at, case reports, opportunity reports, whatever you want to see basically in here. But if we click on the chat option here again, you can see here it's saying, what can I do? So you can see here, you've got the ability to search for records in Dynamics, you've got the ability to show specific records. So if I do look up, got caps lock on, look up Amazon, you can see I'm looking up that Amazon account. And because it's found some search results in here, look, it's found 1 account, 5 contacts, 5 opportunities. If I click on the account, it shows us a preview of the account record that we've got in the database. Again, you can customize the fields that come across here. But because it's found contacts and opportunities as well, it gives us the ability to then do show contacts. So we click show contacts here, we can then see more details around those contacts. So if I click into, there's Jake, the one we was working with earlier. If we click on him, it shows us a preview of his card. Obviously from here, then you can see the show opportunities and you get to see the account from here as well. Obviously up here, if I'd have clicked on show opportunities, it would have done the same thing. It would have listed out all of my opportunities down here that are linked with that Amazon account. Whereas if I did look up that one we had for Qantas earlier, you can see because they don't have any opportunities, it's only showing me the account and 1 contact. So it doesn't have multiple contacts. So when we click on the account here, you can see it doesn't give us the show opportunities option, it just gives us show contacts. But obviously then when you click on here, you can click open in Dynamics. This will then just take you to this individual record, whatever it is, in the database. This is now the Qantas Solutions account that we looked at earlier. Obviously there's that case that we were looking at, the CRM down, linked there as a case, and there's that appointment that we had with Fiona that's obviously on the timeline. So all works quite nicely together. Now just going back to Teams over here, you can also then do things like show my open opportunities, something like that. And then it returns, look, I have found 134 opportunity records in your default view of open opportunities. And of course, then you can see a list of all these in here. You can see recents. If I do show more, obviously there's probably more than a handful in here in this view. There's probably a few hundred in there. If I click show recent, it will just show me the recent opportunities that have filtered into this open opportunities view based on created on. You can see it's showing me 10 of 12. This is where you can then use the show more option, and it just shows you more of those records in here like that. And then you get this scrolling option down here, and then you can see all of those records in those view. You don't want to just see the very first 10. So hopefully you can see how the bot can work in here in Dynamics. Obviously, again, you can click here, let open in Dynamics. It will show you all the open opportunities in Dynamics, take you straight to that view as well. We've covered the dashboards, we've covered the bot. Hopefully you can then see how you're working alongside your other team members remotely, and you're talking and collating on some of these deals. Just going back to the Outlook plugin now. Let's go over here. One thing I thought I'd show you, because we've had a few questions around how the Outlook web app links into Dynamics as well as the desktop application. The answer is it works in the same manner. We're quite mindful that the Outlook plugin is going to be deprecated soon. So just to show you here, I've got an email from Jake Bowler here. You can see, obviously, again, sounds good. What time does it work for you? Sure. Again, you can reply to this because he's asking for a meeting. Obviously, Outlook's just saying, okay, you can have some of these default responses in here. Because we've got the Outlook Dynamics panel over here on the right hand side, because it's found the email address here for Jake, you can see it's not tracked, but it's telling me over here that he's an IT manager, that's his job role, that's his contact. You can see here, I can quite quickly go and view that in Dynamics. If I wanted to see the Amazon account, I can click there again, view in Dynamics. I could set it against that account if I needed to from here. I can see there was a recent phone call, open opportunities, there's a few cases. I can click show more on each of these and it will just expand that and show me more information around that. Now, when we used to have the Outlook plugin installed, you were restricted to being installed on one machine. You're not now, as long as wherever you can access your inbox, whether that's on your desktop version or like this in the cloud, you can obviously have access to this. But what's useful around this is this form that you see over here on the right hand side. This is fully customizable. This is just a quick create form, and it's the Outlook form that we can see in here that we can then populate in terms of what you see, opportunities or cases. Now, if I just come back over here and I'll show you the desktop client, you can see Jake Bowler, there he is, there's no blue track there. You get the same options over here. Look, exactly the same thing appears because we've got the Dynamics 365 in the ribbon over here, and I've pinned it now on the right hand side. you can see it's the same information that we see regardless of which app we're in, whether in the cloud or in our desktop version. If I now track this, I just click track without regarding. Obviously track without regarding is going to copy this and it's going to track it against this individual contact. You can see there at meeting. What this will now actually do, you can see it gives it a little blue icon here. Just click back into that. You can see track to Dynamics 365. Again, going back across here to the Outlook. Can you see now over here, track to Dynamics 365, and we've got that in here as well. Now, if I go over here and I click View in Dynamics 365, it takes me straight to this individual contact record. And you can see again on the timeline under here, under recent activities, there's been 4 new recent activities. There's another email, and there's that email. Look, email from Jake Bowler. Thanks for your call last week, blah, blah, blah. So that's now how it's pushed it in. And I could have done that from the Outlook cloud, or I could have done it from, like, say, the desktop client. There's no difference between the two applications. Now, going back here to my desktop, also what we've got in here, somebody working in their Outlook on their machine, you can see like this, might have somebody like Lucy. New inquiry, it came across their website bar. This is a brand new inquiry, but very often it's quite common that you'll have somebody you're working with, your account managers have worked with in the past. They then move organizations, their end, they get a new email address, but they email the account manager because they've still got their email address. And you can see it's not found the email address here. So over here it comes up as an unknown recipient. At this point, I have the ability to go in here and create as a contact, a lead, or an account. If I click add as a lead, again, mentioning it before, this is now using the lead quick create form. So I can then just put something in here, new inquiry, something like that. It's pulling in first name, last name, email address. I could grab some more details from this. I could fill in the details in here if I need to. So in terms of the fields you see in here, again, you're a bit restricted last time in the Outlook plugin, whereby you couldn't have any mandatory fields. You were limited with the fields you had. You can go and have as many fields in here as you need to, basically. And if there's any mandatory fields that need to happen before creation of this record, we can have them in here. We can click save and close here. You can then see it goes and creates this. It will also, you can see here, look, view in Dynamics, that will take me straight to that lead. Same principle here, look, you get the tracked icon over here. Again, if I flick across here to my Outlook, Dynamics, and I click on leads here, you can see now it's feeding into somebody else, whether this is Fiona, Chris, Martin, whoever this is looking at this, probably Martin because he's a salesperson. Over here on leads, you can see it's feeding this open leads table. Lucy Hewitt's now in here as a new lead. And when we click into this, again, because it's tracked on the timeline here, we get to see there's a new activity, there's a new email. Oh, okay, it's in here, look. And there it is. There's the email pushed across now for anybody with the right permissions to now go and see this. Thanks for listening, guys. I'm going to hand you back to Warren, and I think Warren's going to open up for a few questions and answers.
Many thanks, Martin. Those are just some of the ways how Dynamics works with Office 365 on the same platform, and how this technology is helping home workers adapt by replacing in-person engagements with remote interactions. Hopefully this has helped you identify some improvements for how your existing technology can support you at this time, or it's highlighted potential solutions to help you plan a way forward. Either way, please do get in touch if you need any assistance in configuring the features that Martin demonstrated, or if you want to know more about how to implement and get started with Dynamics 365, as well as solutions like Microsoft Teams. We're going to pause for just a moment to pick up your questions that have come through, so if you just bear with us.